This so-called American health care bill is a real Titanic of a sorry piece of legislation. It would sink 23 million Americans losing their health coverage. Millions more who have a pre-existing condition would face great barriers. It would undermine Medicare. It would provide price gouging big pharma manufacturers with a huge tax windfall, all as part of almost $1 trillion in a tax cut, which is what their bill is really all about, not health care. Those benefits going to a few corporations and the super rich among us. Most every healthcare professional group in the country, along with the AARP and the vast majority of Americans, reject this bill. And we'd have even more people rejecting if it hadn't been hidden, if even one administration official had had the courage to come and be held accountable for this bill in a public hearing. But apparently we will not have that anywhere in this Congress before this huge bill is approved. The American people are locked on board this sinking ship. Our insurance markets are already taking on water from Trump sabotage, and disaster looms in front of us. This is not a Verify First bill that we take up today. It's a patch on this sinking Titanic ship. It's not a Verify First, it's a Vilify First our immigrants. And it's really just the next chapter in Trump's anti-immigrant crusade, which he tweets about on a regular basis. Our Republican colleagues celebrate this Immigrant Heritage Month, June. They celebrate the 4th anniversary of 68 members of the United States Senate in a bipartisan way approving comprehensive immigration reform. They do it with this Vilify Act. And while I want to protect taxpayers and think we have a responsibility to ferret out and prevent every dime of fraud that might be out there, I also feel a responsibility to struggling families that I represent who already have so many barriers in the way of getting coverage to their children. Not everyone is as fortunate as Jimmy Kimmel to have the misfortune of a child born with serious medical needs, but have the ability to do something about it. And folks need to be able to access promptly and immediately sometime a family doctor. We should fight fraud wherever it occurs. I do wish we had the same level of enthusiasm about protecting taxpayers from Medicaid fraud by big pharmaceutical manufacturers, for offshore tax dodging that denies us billions of dollars as they voice for taking on the poor. We don't have that, but we do need to analyze carefully what the Government Accountability Office that it provides the basis for this legislation really said. They found a need to address $750 million under the program. They did not find $1, 1 red cent, that an immigrant had taken improperly from this program. They did not document any immigrant fraud. There may be some out there, but you can't rely on this study to find it. The sponsor of this amendment, we were asked, why do you think this has anything to do with immigrants? Well, I can tell you why. Because the sponsor of the amendment, who is here on the floor, when he introduced this piece of legislation, he said he was after what he called illegal immigrants. And he said that he would not vote for Trump Care, that sorry Titanic of a bill. He would not vote for it unless this provision was adopted. I'd ask the gentlelady for another minute.
I would yield an additional minute to Mr. Doggett.
Gentleman is recognized for an additional minute.
I personally represent in San Antonio, in San Marcos, in Lockhart, and Austin, families that already face barriers to getting their children coverage. And adding an additional requirement just means they're that much less likely in the event of an emergency to be able to get coverage. We need to prevent fraud. This is not the way to do it. What we need is comprehensive immigration reform to deal with these immigration issues, just like the Senate approved 4 years ago. Make improvements on it, debate it, consider it, sink this sorry piece of legislation, try to raise up the anti-fraud provisions and the comprehensive immigration reform that we so desperately need to grow this economy, and I yield back.